if you drive through the Midwest, you see we haven't done this yet, right? Mm-hmm. There's still plenty of work to do.
Right.
So their perspective is not, let's give a Lifetime Achievement Award to somebody who solved a great environmental problem, but let's give a boost to an effort that if it has the chance to succeed, it could really transform things. And that, I think, is a good description of where we're at right now.
Hi, folks. This is Jacob Grace, and you're listening to Perennial AF, the Savanna Institute's podcast about perennial agroforestry. A few months ago, we were notified that the Savanna Institute had been selected from over 1,000 nominees as one of 35 candidates for the Food Planet Prize, the world's biggest environmental prize. About a month ago, we were notified that we had been selected as one of the 4 finalists. Earlier today, the Kurt Bergfors Foundation, which administers the Food Planet Prize, announced this year's winner. It was not us. But we are thrilled and honored to have been considered as a finalist for this year's award. The Savanna Institute's vision for perennial agriculture has been shaped by those who came before us and shared by many across the world. And being recognized as a Food Planet Prize finalist is a testament to this vision, as both a source of hope and as a viable means of addressing some of our planet's most serious challenges. So thank you to all of you listening for helping us get to this point, and for helping raise the visibility of agroforestry and perennial agriculture happening across the world. We could not have gotten as far as we did without you. A couple of weeks ago, I sat down with Keefe Keeley, Executive Director of the Savanna Institute, to talk about the Food Planet Prize and other exciting things happening at the organization. Keefe is currently in Sweden, meeting with the Food Planet Prize Committee, and now seems like the right time to listen back to our conversation. To learn more about the Food Planet Prize, you can skip ahead to the second half of the episode, or visit foodplanetprize.org. Here's Keefe Keeley. Well, Keefe, welcome back to the Perennial AF podcast.
Thanks, Jacob.
Glad to have you here. We are in person in the Savanna Institute office.
Yeah.
And I think we can get started with the question I like to ask everybody, which is, what's something you've been nerding out about lately?
Okay, nerding out. Well, we'll just dive straight into the deep end of the pool here then.
This is something you and I have both been getting emails about over the last few months.
Yeah, when you suggested I think about this 2 minutes ago, oddly enough, the first thing that came to mind was the exclusion period for livestock grazing in orchards before those orchards are harvested. And that's something that exists in organic farming standards and regulations, also something that's a part of food safety standards. And yeah, you and I worked on this a little bit a long time ago, probably
Yes.
5, 6, 7 years ago.
It was a very early project that I was involved in.
Yeah, so if some of the listeners may be familiar with the deep cuts of the Savanna Institute media catalog, and some of those food safety videos that we did, I think are still really great. There's some really nice interviews on the farms with farmers who are doing some innovative work, putting livestock into their orchards, why they do it, how they protect food safety, what benefits it has for the livestock and the crops. So anyway, recently the National Organic Standards Board, which sets the standards for what organic farms can and can't do, has been looking at a regulation around how long do you have to keep livestock out of an orchard or out of a farm field before you harvest those crops, so that the crops aren't contaminated by any pathogens associated with the manure from the livestock. And that rule also applies when farmers spread manure for fertility that they've collected from where the livestock have been elsewhere. And so the cool thing about this for me was not only that people are paying attention to this pretty nerdy thing that actually has a lot of cool things about just how ecology can go to work on a farm when animals are a part of the farm ecosystem and do things like give you more fertility and control pests and manage the vegetation and integrate, more profit-making enterprises into the same piece of land. But particularly this was cool for me because I didn't really know this was even happening at all. I think you didn't either. It was probably off your radar.
Yeah.
And then out of the blue, someone who we work with at the Agroforestry Coalition, Christel Zobish, who's like a policy advisor, was spearheading a comment to give guidance to the National Organic Standards Board on this topic. And unbeknownst to me, 3 of our very talented Savanna Institute staff members had been working with Christel to really kind of dial in what some of the science and practical farm considerations and what's a real food safety concern versus kind of being overcautious and handcuffing farmers in a way that doesn't really make scientific sense or food safety sense. And so I'm trying to see if I can remember who it was. Jen Ripp was involved, maybe Caleb Langworthy, and one other person on staff who knows a lot about this.
Maybe Eliza
Greenman, of course. Yeah, she's been on the podcast too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so they worked with Christel, came up with these really awesome set of recommendations, and I don't know if the Organic Standards Board has met yet, but I think that comment was submitted, and so that was just, I was nerding out just because it's the topic I think is really cool, but also really gratifying to see that like the community of people who care about these nerdy things is making a difference at that sort of level of federal regulation in a way that hopefully will give farmers sort of more clarity and guidance on how to do livestock integration into ecological farming systems in a way that's food safe and effective and all those cool things. So
yeah,
there's the deep end of the pool for you.
That is very nerdy and very exciting, and some of the videos we did from that project are still like some of our most popular videos on our YouTube channel.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I think there's one with Reginaldo Haslet Marroquin, Harry and Jackie Hoke are in there, Dana Burtness. So like some of our go-to agroforestry influencers
those are the farmer movie stars for sure.
Are showing up for us. So people can learn more in those videos on our YouTube channel. Yeah, well, we've got a lot to talk about today, and maybe just kind of to start off, it's now May 2026.
Is that what year we're in?
Yes.
Sometimes I'm not sure.
So who knows when you are listening to this conversation, but for us it's May 2026, and what are some of the big things going on right now at the Savanna Institute?
Yeah, well, there's always a lot of really exciting things going on, it seems like. Still riding the high of the Perennial Farm Gathering. That was almost a couple months ago now, but that's our marquee event where a lot of the community comes together. I should have figured this out, but I think it was either our 13th or 14th time doing this since the first one in 2013. So that in itself is pretty cool. And it was the first time we've done it in Iowa. We've moved it around in Illinois and different spots in Wisconsin. And we almost made it to Iowa one year when we were at Cincinnati Mound Center, which is just across the river from Dubuque. But this year we were in Dubuque proper. And it was a great gathering in a lot of different ways. Being in Iowa, where my parents are both from Iowa, even though I grew up in Wisconsin, and my mom on a farm in Iowa. So that felt like I was getting back to my roots a little bit. And the theme was the roots of resilience. And themes are always a little bit kind of abstract and slogany, but that was meaningful to me. It felt like resilience is a meaningful topic and theme when the world feels so turbulent. And so I think there's oftentimes at the Perennial Farm gatherings this kind of through current of hope as a sort of something that is hard to kind of put your finger on and say, hey, I need a little more hope in my life. But when you're with people who like are practical, passionate, want to share what they know and learn from each other, and even share plant material. We did a plant swap that was really fun. That gives a sense of not just like hope is this sort of cheap thing that we got a better world coming, but that these are people who are building it, who are planting it and growing it. And so I'm still feeling really good about that. And there's a lot of pieces of it that I could highlight. In particular, we had an awesome keynote message on day 2 or day 1 from Wendy Johnson, who's a farmer in Iowa and a member of the Partner Farm Network that we've been building out. And she's done a lot of different programs with Savanna Institute. But her farm in northeastern Iowa is just really cool in that she grew up on the sort of conventional grain and confinement livestock farm, moved away from the farm, came back with her husband and family and wanted to do things a little differently, and so has been building an organic perennial direct-to-consumer farm sort of within the context of this larger conventional farm that she still works on with her dad and family too. And so she's got a great story of the sort of arc of her journey, and just really nailed it in terms of giving an inspiring and really substance-rich message about here's what we're doing on my farm, here's what it means to me, here's what I see happening with the communities I'm a part of, and here's, you know, some things we need to think about for the sort of direction of all of us who are working on this together. Mm-hmm. So Wendy was a real, inviting her and her gracing us with that message was a real highlight. And then we also had Dr. Liz Carlisle give another kind of closing keynote message. And Liz just released a book along with Dr. Aubrey Streit-Krug from the Land Institute called Living Roots. And there I can hear my Midwestern accent come out sometimes when I say roots. I'm gonna drink some rut beer.
Yeah.
So Living Roots is this compilation of essays from people working on perennial agriculture and perennial foods. And I feel really honored and fortunate to have an essay in there along with several other Savanna Institute co-workers. Eliza Greenman, who we mentioned, along with Bill Davison is in there, and Freddie Utzi has an essay too. And then many people who we've worked with for many years as well. Rahi, who you mentioned, Haslett Marroquin, has a beautiful essay in there, and folks across the country. So that book itself has been really cool to see, from agroforestry to perennial forages and grazing to perennial grains, what is a sort of umbrella for a movement around perennializing agriculture and bringing more diversity of crops, of biological diversity, of cultural diversity into revolutionizing really our food and farming system. And it's a beautiful book with these really touching sort of personal stories. And so we had a number of the authors in the book there and Liz to kind of carry the torch for us all. So that's been one of these things that sort of, I think it was the first book launch event that they did there. And so they've continued to kind of go on a book tour with this. And so it's been fun to see that those ripples kind of keep going out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun to see the book signing table where there were like half a dozen people who had contributed to the book all lined up and signing the book. So yeah, it was great to have everyone there for that. And you have an essay in the book, as you mentioned, and it's a personal essay, kind of telling your background in farming a little bit, but it's also a little bit of the origin story of the Savanna Institute. So could you say just a little bit about what's in your essay?
Yeah, sure. It was a little uncomfortable for me, you know, but I'm a scientist by background, and we've always tried to make Savanna Institute not about the sort of personalities. It's about the mission and the community. And so that's something for me and for Kevin Wolves, who's one of the co-founders, and others, that's always been important. But that's really what Liz and Aubrey wanted, was a book where people would tell their personal stories. And so they twisted my arm. And it's really a generous, you know, invitation when somebody says, tell us your story. So yeah, I shared a little bit about when I tried my hand at becoming a beginning farmer and learned just how difficult of a thing that is for anybody to, you know, make a living farming, but especially when you're a beginning farmer, and especially when you have all these wild ideas about perennial crops and diversity, and you're trying new and risky things. And so, you know, to skip to the punchline, that was part of the genesis of the Savanna Institute, is recognizing that there's a need for more support. There's a need for organizations that can lower the barriers to farmers having success with perennial crops, with tree crops, with diversity through agroforestry and through other ways of integrating enterprises. So I was, much more poetic, of course, on the page. But so you'll have to read it if you want to really get the scoop there. But
that's right.
But it was an honor to share the pages of that book with a lot of other great folks with really inspiring stories in there too. Leah Penniman from Soulfire Farm, and the essay right next to me was a person who grew up farming with olive trees in Palestine, and so that was really touching. Like, wow, that's an amazing story. So that was really a highlight of the Perennial Farm Gathering, and continues to be a highlight as that book, we get to share it with more people. I also still am kind of pinching myself and can't believe one of my personal heroes, Wes Jackson, at 90 years old, was it 80 or 90 years old? I think
it was 90.
Turning 90, drove with his son-in-law all the way from Kansas to Dubuque, Iowa, to accept our sort of version of a Lifetime Achievement Award, the Deep Roots Award. And he doesn't get out much anymore. And so it was, to do speaking or that sort of thing. But so we were kind of like, well, you don't have to do anything, Wes. You can just, if you even show up, that's awesome. But then he gave this really, moving and inspiring talk for 10 minutes or so when he accepted the award. And, he's just a masterful orator. So it kind of had us all wrapped around his finger. And so that was...
He still got it.
He still got it, yeah. Yep. That was really cool.
Yeah. And if people haven't listened already, I did include the Deep Roots and New Shoots Awards ceremony on the podcast.
Oh, did you? I didn't know that. I got to catch up on my episodes here.
I also was pretty blown away by his speech, and then just that whole, all the talking during that section. So we do have that on the podcast for people who are interested.
Oh, cool. Well, now I'll have to listen to that.
That's right. We had Wes Jackson at the Perennial Farm Gathering. People can hear that on the podcast, and they can also hear Selena Warsaw Lane receiving the New Shoots Award.
Yeah.
How did we end up working with Selena?
Well, if you listened, I think, to the podcast that has the actual ceremony at the Perennial Farm Gathering, I give a little bit of the backstory about how I got to know Selena, but it was actually Aaron Crooks Lynch, our coworker, who nominated her. And the New Shoots Award is meant to kind of be a counterpart to the Deep Roots Award, where the Deep Roots is kind of a lifetime achievement award, whereas New Shoots is to recognize someone who's more early career, making a difference, has an inspiring story, and somebody we want to lift up and recognize. And so Selena is a second generation orchardist, was an orchard that her mom started and has run for many years, and then also runs a food business, a culinary business that makes lots of delicious ice creams featuring agroforestry crops. She's got just an amazing blackcurrant sorbets, various hazelnut ice creams. I think she did a chestnut creme ice cream recently that was really a hit. In the list, she did a honeyberry ice cream that was amazing. So the list goes on. If you're ever in Spring Green, what is the name of her ice cream shop? It's anyway.
Frozen Local.
Frozen Local. Yeah, Spring Green is a tiny town, so there's not too many ice cream shops to choose from. But it's some of the best ice cream. Actually, when Erin was giving Selena the award, she said
she emphasized
her kid, who's 9 years old or something, has become such a food snob in her mom's image that she refuses to eat other kinds of ice cream, just Selena's. So Selena's just a really inspiring person who's doing a lot for the local food movement, from the farm to the culinary side. And then just a few weeks after the Perennial Farm Gathering, there's around Spring Green an event called Savor the River Valley, which is what that region or community is called. And so there's people can take a Saturday and visit different local food shops or farms and just kind of see what's happening, learn about the products or the services or the events that are there. And so Savanna Institute had one of the stops there at our Elderflower Retreat, which is our hospitality center, our small meeting space, a guest house for rentals. And so we welcomed, I think Erin said almost 500 people came through that day and learned about Savanna Institute and learned about Elderflower Retreat is at one of our demonstration farms, Hillside Pastures, where have a mature silvopasture system and have planted some new trees as well. and tasted some delicious crepes.
Right.
Yeah.
There's like a lamb crepe, and then there are quite a few.
Yeah, some sort of sweet crepe with a hazelnut in it. But the lamb was from North Farm, where we've integrated lamb, a flock of sheep, into the chestnut research orchard there. So that's pretty cool and delicious. So Selena's orchard and her mom's orchard, Future Fruit Farm, was another one of the stops on that day.
Okay.
Savor the River Valley. And so that was kind of fun. I stopped in there and got to see Selena in her element, and welcoming people to the farm, and where they'd done some great work. It was still early spring. You could see that they just kind of finished their pruning, and so the orchard, they'd put some good energy and effort into it over the winter, and had some delicious ice cream and other food to offer. So that's been interesting to me more broadly, just how that sort of community building, the hospitality of welcoming people to Elderflower and to our other farms around Spring Green has really become an important part of our mission. And it kind of has always been there. We've been about, okay, if somebody wants to learn about this, if somebody wants to be a part of it, how can Savanna Institute help connect people into making the world filled with more agroforestry and trees on farms? And so it's really not just the work that we're doing, welcoming people to Elderflower or to events on the farms, but partnering with neighbors and other farms in the community as well. And so that's just really fun and meaningful and delicious and community rich kind of to be a part of. And so I would invite folks, listeners, if you're in the Midwest or want to travel to the Midwest, we've always got events coming up. So check out our website and come join us out on the farm or for a dinner or something like that, because that's really the best way to get connected with the community and get involved, or just learn about what we're doing. And so come on out.
Yeah, we'd love to have you. It's great to have these ways for people who aren't scientists and aren't farmers, aren't landowners, or never planning to be, but still have ways for them to engage in.
Yeah, if nothing else, we all eat.
Exactly.
And the food that comes off of these diverse farms doing agroforestry is, I'm a little biased, but I think it's some of the most delicious and interesting and sort of has the flavor of the place food that there is.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, maybe let's shift gears here to talk about kind of one of the main things we wanted to talk about today. And one of the main things that's going on here in May 2026 is that Savanna Institute has been shortlisted for the Food Planet Prize, which is a tremendous honor. And in a couple weeks, we're going to be finding out who the actual prize winner is. So, Keefe, could you say a little bit about just how this started, when the application process began, or
so to draw the arc a little bit. The Food Planet Prize nomination process is open to everyone across the whole world, and they have
across the whole food system, right?
Yeah, from food products, ingredients, school lunches, all the way to on the ground, on the farm, research practitioners, just anybody who's working to improve food and farming systems to make them more environmentally friendly, basically, is the purpose of the award, is to recognize that. And so they receive, I don't know if this is every year, but I know at least this year they said they had well over 1,000 nominations that came in from across the globe. And I think the first nomination phase is pretty brief. You just kind of give the thumbnail or the skinny on what you're doing, and if it passes their first sort of check, then they invite you to give more information. And there's sort of a series of progressive, like if you make the cut, you give them more information, they evaluate it, and then they narrow it down further. And so I forget how many rounds of that there were, and credit to Kate Wersen and her team who work on grants and development and storytelling, that they were really managing this process and telling our story in a compelling way to it's called the Kurt Bergfors Foundation in Sweden that hosts this prize. And so we found out maybe in November or December that we were long listed, which is, I think it was like 35 out of these 1,000 that they say, hey, we think these are all worthy potential prize winners, and they write an essay and do some photographs and kind of want to share the good news about all this work that's happening across the world. So even that, making the long list, was like, oh, this is cool. We're one of 35 like initiatives across the world being highlighted that are making a difference. And then they narrow that further down to the short list, the finalists who could win the prize. And there's 4 of us, I believe. And so we found out about that a few weeks ago. And the 4 finalists go to Sweden, where the jury that selects the prize winner will meet for the final time, and they'll have some sort of final discussions with each of the finalists, a sort of pitch and a Q&A. The jury will make their selection, and then there'll be a sort of award ceremony. And then there's some more sort of like, they want to build community and network, and so we'll get to do some interaction with the other finalists. And there's a journalist from the UK, maybe the BBC or something like that, who's going to do some panel that they'll share out some material from that, because a lot of their mission is, hey, there's really important and good work happening. Let's help shine a light on it. So beyond the cash prize that's associated with the award, there's this shine a spotlight on good work. So so that's pretty exciting. Kate and I are going to go to Sweden and meet the other finalists and the jury, and hopefully come back with one of those big checks like they have on the game shows.
Yeah. And at this stage, all 4 finalists do get some cash, right?
Yeah, the 4 finalists each get $150,000. And then the winner, they add a 0 to the end of that. And so they say that's the world's largest environmental prize.
Yes.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah. It did remind me of this thing that I was going to bring up, which I think someone asked you, like, what if someone came to Savanna Institute and wrote you a check for like $1 million? What would you do with it? And I think your answer was something like, well, that would be enough to like operate an average sized farm for like 10 years or like buy 4 new pieces of farm equipment. The idea being that like $1 million gets used up very quickly, especially in agriculture.
Yeah.
So at this point, all of the finalists are getting some money from the foundation, but if we do come home with the big check, where would that money be going? Yeah,
well, we've got a lot of ways to put it to work. 3 that we've highlighted for the foundation that are where we have some of our most important impact are our technical assistance program. So that's staff who work with farmers and landholders who want to do agroforestry, and helping them come up with a plan that's going to meet their goals on the farm, and then a plan for how to implement that and have the best chance at successful outcomes that they're looking for with agroforestry. And that program has a sort of catalyzing role too, where if those farmers are successful, they become champions of agroforestry. But then also, as we've developed our model for how to work with folks doing agroforestry, other organizations, agencies in other parts of the country or elsewhere in the Midwest, we worked with them on getting better at doing that. So technical assistance and technical training for other technical assistance providers. And we've got a wait list of people who are looking for that assistance. So being able to put more resources to that will directly lead to more agroforestry out in the world. And then some of where that happens is we have a network, our partner farm network, and those are individual farms that have said, hey, we want to work with Savanna Institute, we want to work with other farmers who are doing agroforestry to learn from each other, host events, host on-farm research, host trainings or trainees and that sort of thing. So that's another area of the sort of partner farms and demonstration farms that we would want to put more resources to. And then our research program as well, which spans environmental research on soil and water, biodiversity, climate, landscape ecology, looking at sort of the spatial aspects of agroforestry and crop suitability, but especially our tree crop improvement program. And that's where we're breeding crops, improving them so that those foundational pieces of agroforestry systems can, really be fine-tuned to the place where they're growing and the markets where they're going to go to, and just perform well for the farmers to get what they need out of them. So that's one of these foundational pieces to make agroforestry work better in the Midwest. That's pretty resource-intensive work and long-term, but so if we can bring home some of this award money and put it towards that, then we're ready to do that.
Yeah. And I know one of the things that the Food Planet Prize folks noted was just how that combination of research and development paired with the farmer network is really kind of a good feedback loop of like doing R&D on these crops and systems, and then immediately getting them out to farmers and getting feedback on what's working and what's not working.
Yeah, and sometimes the loop is even tighter than that, that the research is happening on the network of farms. And so it's, there are certainly a lot of research institutions that have distributed research networks, practitioner groups that they're working with. But for Savanna Institute, it's really tight for us. It's not like we're a research institute working with a farmer network group. We're doing both in-house, and I think that is a potent combination to be able to work holistically like that, to make sure that the research is really tightly linked to what farmers need in terms of improved crops or better information or management techniques, so that we can be responsive to that. And we can do better research by doing it on farm as well, just to get better data, get it from different places. We've got this exciting windbreak project now where we're surveying windbreaks that have been on farms for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and we can measure for windbreaks of different ages, what's the benefit to the crops that they're adjacent to? What's the benefit to the soil and biodiversity? How much carbon are these windbreaks storing? So that we don't have to wait 40 years to get those data from windbreaks that we plant.
Yeah.
We go out and learn from farms where it's already there. So that's just one example of how beneficial it is to be working closely with a network of farms in our research program.
Yeah. You're listening to my conversation with Keefe Keeley, Executive Director of the Savanna Institute, recorded a couple of weeks ago at our office in Madison, Wisconsin. After a break, we'll hear more about the 2026 Food Planet Prize. This podcast is made possible by Canopy Farm Management, a perennial farm management business and tree crop nursery based in Illinois and Wisconsin. Canopy is so busy this time of year that I actually haven't heard much from them lately, but I do know that Canopy recently planted their 500,000th tree. That's right, Canopy Farm Management has now planted over 500,000 trees since it was launched in 2022. Also, they have the systems and equipment to know when they're planting their 500,000th tree. That's pretty impressive on its own. So if you need to plant a lot of trees very precisely, then you should be working with Canopy. You can learn more about Canopy's products and services at canopyfm.com. And now, back to my conversation with Savanna Institute's Executive Director, Keefe Keeley. Keefe is currently in Sweden, meeting with the Food Planet Prize jury and committee, along with the other 3 finalists. Andhra Pradesh Community Managed Natural Farming in India, which has worked with 1.8 million farmer families to help them farm without synthetic chemicals. They were this year's Food Planet Prize winner. Conscious Kitchen in California, which connects organic farms with public schools to provide nearly 1 million students with organic meals. And No Palm Ingredients in the Netherlands, which converts food waste into a drop-in replacement for palm oil, a problematic ingredient that is used in nearly 50% of packaged food products. What an honor to be included alongside projects like these. You can learn more about this year's finalists at foodplanetprize.org. As we said, this prize is open to projects all over the world, and the other 3 finalists, there's one is from California, but there's another one from India, and the other one is from the Netherlands. So why do you think, with the whole world open to this prize, that people are interested in what's going on here in the U.S. Midwest?
Yeah, I mean, it's really humbling at the same time as it's, sort of elevating and feels like a great honor to be recognized among. There's so much great work going on, and I've just done a little bit of learning about the other initiatives you mentioned, the finalists so far. Look forward to learning more. But the group in India, for example, they said they're working or have worked with 1.8 million farmers. Right. And there's a lot of people in India, but that's a lot of people. That's about as many farms as we have in the United States total. So that's really impressive. And they're working on natural farming, which is what they call a certain kind of farming. Actually, I spent some time in India and Japan, where the natural farming movement started in my younger years. And so it's cool. When I was in India 20 years ago, there were people talking about this. And so to see 20 years later how much it's grown is kind of cool for me personally, but especially because it's about organic farming in the sense of not relying on synthetic fertilizers. And now in May 2026, we're looking at a global situation where there are fertilizer shortages because of the shipping blockage in the Strait of Hormuz. And there are a lot of reasons why being sort of addicted in our farming systems to synthetic fertilizers is causes challenges or problems, but that they've been able to scale some solutions to that is really cool. So just to be in the same room with that kind of an effort is really cool. But why the American Midwest? It really is the belly of the beast when it comes to industrialized agriculture, and that, I don't know, that can sound a little bit like evil empire talk, but it's not just evil empire. It's that the sort of technological progress of industrialized farming is, except for maybe some parts of the world that are highly specialized in specialty crops, the Dutch and such, like in terms of large-scale commodity crops, we've really got it dialed in here. We know how to get corn and soybeans to yield to the max. Yeah. And that's a great scientific achievement. I think a lot of listeners here will be familiar with some of the side effects that have caused us challenges with our water quality and rural community depopulation and such. And so how do we continue to, really in one of the great breadbaskets of the world, continue to have an extremely productive agriculture that our society relies on while mitigating some of these side effects? There are lots of opinions about this, but from my point of view, we can't really afford to just take a lot of land out of production in order to get the water quality we need, in order to get carbon sequestration we need, in order to improve wildlife habitat, to protect soil. We need to keep farming. And so that's the crux of what we're doing at the Savanna Institute, is how do we keep farming and get the broader array of things we need out of agriculture? How do we keep farming, keep getting food, and not only food, but nutritious food from the land, while we also can help to provide clean water to our neighbors, hold the soil in place for future generations, make sure there's enough space for wildlife to continue in multiple generations, stabilize the climate. That's really depends on the audience. Climate is a generalized thing. It's not something that really a single farm can have an impact on. But as a society, it's something we're still grappling with. What does it mean? And the science is pretty clear that when we look at how can agriculture shift from being a net emitter or a climate problem to a net cooling effect, being part of the solution. Like, trees are just really good at soaking carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and holding it in the biosphere and in the soil. So if we can get more trees into our farms, not just turning farms into forests where we don't really get much food, but trees that are part of our farms, I think that's why the Food Planet Prize is interested in what we're doing, is because it's not a lifetime achievement award. Like, if you drive through the Midwest, you see we haven't done this yet, right? Mm-hmm. There's still plenty of work to do.
Right.
So their perspective is not, let's give a lifetime achievement award to somebody who solved a great environmental problem, but let's give a boost to an effort that if it has the chance to succeed, it could really transform things. And that, I think, is a good description of where we're at right now. That we've got a great start where we've shown that farms can work better when trees are integrated in intelligent ways. We've got research programs that are improving that every day. We've got a network of farmers who are sharing that with each other, and a lot of other things that have momentum. But it's still early stage momentum, and so that's why I can't speak for the foundation and for the prize, but that's my sense of why they've taken an interest in what we're doing. Like, it's a globally important place that we're in, and the work that we're doing has that transformational potential.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, hopefully great enough to win the prize. But I don't want to be satisfied with just being a finalist, but even that is really an honor. We'll give it our best shot to come home with the big game show check. But
yeah. On that note, then, when you and Kate fly to Sweden and you're in the room with the panel of judges, and I think you get like 5 minutes. Is that right?
That's right.
That is a very short amount of time to talk about the proposal. But what are some of the things you're going to talk about in that 5 minutes? Yeah,
well, we're still working on our tight five, so I won't give you a dress rehearsal of that here on the podcast. But
start with a few jokes and with the mic drop.
Warm up the crowd a little bit. Some of what I just highlighted for you about how we're in a globally important place and we've got this transformational potential. And some of it will be highlighting just how I outlined some of our programs that are really making an impact and poised for deeper impact. And some of it's going to be to talk about the nature of agroforestry itself, and that it's not so much about the Savanna Institute. I think we're a pretty cool outfit that's doing some great things, but it's really about how does nature work, and how do we have a sort of another green revolution that moves us from the first green revolution, which was largely chemical based, to another green revolution, which is biology and ecology based. And so recognizing that the way our food systems and farming systems need to transform if they're going to be built for the long haul of millennia and for addressing some present day crucial needs around clean water and better economic opportunities for farmers, for example, we really need deeper roots. We need more perennials on our farms, and we need more diversity. You just don't see many monocultures in nature. And so understanding humans as a sort of keystone species who are a part of the ecosystem, and farmers as really the key people in our communities who hold this role of keystone species because we're the ones managing the land. And so how do we put more in the farmer's tool belt that makes perennials not just possible, but the best choice that a farmer can make? And how do we make diversity not just something that's like extra work to happen on the edge, but really clearly makes farms work better? When there's trees that offer shade to livestock in the pasture, those livestock put on more weight gain because they're eating more hours of the day, or they have better calving success rate, or whatever it might be. That there's just a clear function as part of the farming system that these trees are providing. And that's not a tight five, but distilling that into, when ecology makes farming work better, then it's an easy choice for farmers, and we can lower those barriers, and we can provide those on-ramps and connect farmers with each other and the supports needed. Our organization is poised to move the science forward, build the skills in the farming community, and provide the wider ecosystem of support. Those are the ingredients of transformation that we're working with. So hopefully that's enough of a pitch that they say, hey, we're gonna take a gander on this outfit in the Midwest that thinks that this is ground zero for the revolution that we really need in how we do farming.
Yeah, it makes me think about kind of the overall strategy too of like Savanna Institute focusing on solutions that can scale. And there's so many cool things people are doing with agroforestry, and I think that's part of what our focus is looking for ones that can go big.
Yeah. And our slogan recently we've been working on is trees for every farm. And so scale is not just big farms, but it's the number of farms. And so farms of all types. And so farms, whether you're a small pasture-based livestock farm or you're a large row crop farm that can benefit from having windbreaks interspersed throughout your parcels, or any other farm in between, specialty crop farms that are going to add more diversity of crops that they're growing to reach direct to consumer or whatever it might be. I think we've got an opportunity to transform not just one type of agriculture, but really the diversity of agriculture that also makes the Midwest such a rich region. Even though you see a lot of corn and soybeans, there's a lot else going on in the Midwest too in terms of agriculture. So being in the mix of that, I think, is important here too.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Savanna Institute's mission and strategy and vision, we're at the time of year where our what most organizations would call an annual report, we call a perennial report, obviously.
It's a little on the nose, but we're not shy about our puns here.
That's right. So it's been a month or two now, but this is also kind of our chance to look back on 2025 and some of our impact and different things that rolled out in the last year. So that's available on our website for people that want to take a look at it, but we were going to kind of take a look at it here in this episode today.
Let me take a look at it here. Like you say, it's been a month or two since it came out, and in May 2026, 2025 seems like a long time ago now.
It does indeed.
I think overall, what I really appreciated reading through the report, and Erica Pashold and Sarah French on the development team, working with some folks on our communications team, did a really beautiful job of it this year. It's, speaking of a tight five, like they really condensed it to make it more approachable for a reader who just kind of wants to page through and get inspired. There's some nice stories in here, but it's really meant to just give you at a glance, here's a lot of the scope of the work that we're doing. And so it's just so like gratifying and personally meaningful to me to see the really passionate and dedicated people who are working on our team to make a difference. Like, this is the difference that they're making, and a year is sort of an artificial, well, it's not that artificial, it's a trip around the sun. It's pretty fundamental to everything, I guess, but to see
January 1 is kind of an artificial.
That's right. But the snapshot of here's what we can do in a year, and having thousands of people who come out to field days and join us on the farm, tens of thousands of people who are interacting with our materials online, including the videos and this podcast and things, and the progress that we're making in the research program, the number of farmers and the difference it's making for our teams who are working one-on-one with farmers. We don't have a lot in here about Canopy Farm Management or the Coalition, which are two important efforts that have sort of spun out of the Savanna Institute and have their own identity now, but those really made a lot of progress in 2025. So there's a lot of great things to highlight there. And
Find a copy near you or on our website.
Or reach out to me or another staff member. If you, I think the PDF is probably available online, but if you want a paper copy, that's kind of fun too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And one program that I guess rolled out this year, because we announced it at the PFG, but we've expanded our network of agroforestry farms, which we had a farm network in Wisconsin that was kind of the initial phase, and now we've expanded that. So that didn't make it into the perennial report.
Yeah, that was another thing that we announced recently at the Perennial Farm Gathering, is that the partner farm network is expanding out to Iowa and Illinois in particular. And in just the mere weeks since the Perennial Farm Gathering, I forget the exact numbers that Katie Adams, who leads that program, mentioned to me, but it's dozens, well over 100 farms have joined the network, which is quite a few in just a few weeks from starting a program to have, I think it was 160 some farms that have signed up. So that's really cool to see there's that much sort of demand and interest out there among farms who want to be a part of an agroforestry focused network. And Katie's done a really good job of, while Savanna Institute is hosting the network, really setting it up to belong to the farms. So in some sense, it's not Savanna Institute's network, it's the farms network. It's a way for farms to connect with each other and to connect with Savanna Institute's programs. But that, that's been really cool to see. And so you'll have to stay tuned probably for the 2026 report on that, or we may have more to share on that in the meantime too through other channels. Another thing that didn't make it in here was some of the ecosystem research program. We couldn't really fit it all in here, and Nate, who leads that program, Dr. Nate Lawrence, has been busy writing up some of the results for the peer literature of some of his work on carbon and water quality and biodiversity. And so I'll highlight that too as something that there's some really exciting things happening that didn't make it into the report.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, Keefe, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Yeah, this is fun. Thanks, Jacob.
Yeah, we look forward to hearing the final results of the Food Planet Prize. So,
all right, keep your fingers crossed.
Yes, depending on when this episode comes out, we may know the final results. And be able to share them with folks. So, good luck as you go off to Sweden.
I think you're supposed to say break a leg, right?
Break a leg. That's right. Well, and we talked about ending our episode today with having you read something. So we already talked about how you'd written something for the Living Roots book, but we were going to ask you to read your letter from the Perennial report that just came out. So that'll be our closing, and I'll turn it over to you, Keefe. Thanks.
All right. Dear friends, lately I've been thinking about roots, not the tidy diagram from a textbook, but the real ones. Messy but intentional, patient but dynamic, mostly invisible. The roots that anchor a tree through storms, droughts, and long seasons of uncertainty, quietly sensing the world and adapting to it. Our own roots have been tested and have grown in new ways this past year. We're living through a season of change. The landscape that has supported agroforestry's growth over the past decade is shifting. Some funding sources feel less predictable. While timelines are longer, each moment demands more from us. And still, our story, yours and mine and everyone who knows in their bones that farms are no less than our sustaining connection to the web of life, has deep roots. Resilience is not about bracing for impact or simply holding on. It's about learning, adapting, and continuing to grow with intention. It's about having roots that are deep enough and relationships strong enough to embrace change without losing who you are. Roots are resilient because they grow together, interlocking with others in symbiosis, exchanging information, moving resources up to the light where they can be transformed into life and bear fruit. You can probably see where I'm going with this. You, our community, showed us this year that we're truly in this together. This work is vital to so many of us. By working together, we're not just weathering a changing world, we are shaping it. From the very beginning, this work has been rooted in community. Farmers opening their land and sharing what they've learned, researchers and practitioners working side by side, partners willing to collaborate across institutions, supporters who believe deeply in what trees on farms can make possible. And this past year has reaffirmed just how powerful this community is. When federal funding has slowed, paused, or shifted, the steady support of our donors, especially those giving flexible gifts to our Perennial Giving Fund, has helped us navigate this transitional time with care and confidence. Because of you, we've been able to continue supporting farmers, advancing research, and sustaining momentum in key areas of our work, even as we adapt to changing circumstances. Many of you have supported our work for years. Others have joined more recently, drawn in by curiosity, commitment, or a belief that food systems can be healthier and more resilient. However you arrived here, your support is doing more than helping us navigate a moment of change. It's helping define what comes next. Agroforestry invites us to think beyond the annual cycles of the year, to invest in systems that grow stronger year over year, and to trust that care now will yield abundance later. The same is true for organizations and movements. The choices we make together today become the roots of tomorrow's resilience. As you read this report, I hope you feel both pride and possibility. These pages reflect research advanced, acres planted, communities strengthened, and barriers lowered. They also reflect something less tangible, but just as real: a shared commitment to learning, collaboration, and long-term stewardship. Thank you for being a part of this community. Thank you for helping Savanna Institute live up to its promise as a catalyst for our shared vision. Thank you for believing with us that a future of farms rich with trees, birdsong, and opportunity is not only possible, but already taking shape. Thank you.
That was Keefe Keeley reading his letter from our latest perennial report. If you'd like to learn more about anything you've heard in this episode, our website, savannainstitute.org, is the best place to start. Also, our event season is up and running, so come see us, why don't you? We'll be hosting field days, farm tours, and online events for the next several months, and we'd love to see you. So take a look at savannainstitute.org/events to find an event near you. If you have something you'd like to hear on this podcast, or a question you'd like to ask, or a story you'd like to tell, please let me know. You can leave us a voicemail at 608-448-6432 or send us a message on social media at Savanna Institute. If you want to get our newest episodes when they come out, all you have to do is hit the subscribe button. And if you're really a fan of the podcast and want to help us out, you can rate us in your podcast app or send this episode to a friend. Thanks for listening. Until next time, keep up the good work, keep your feet on the ground, and keep an eye on the sky.